What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the live Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to join the Flat Earth Debate community, go to nathanoakley.com and join the community forum to keep up to date with the community Flat Earth Debate. Most importantly though, if you would like to join this discussion right now, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by The Plain Truth, Paul, The Morgile, Flatten Earth, HLSS, Chocolate Saying, and Arwin. Very good to have you all.
Morning.
Hello.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello. What?
I would do housekeeping. My kids just bought an entire loaf and poured it onto me. So just give me 30 seconds.
I thought Polaris is a really interesting one, and I know we talked about it already quite a bit, but I was kind of humoring the heliocentric model a little bit by talking about how the movement in our galaxy is explained by how far away it is. But if you look at when the earliest recorded, when it was discovered, it's moved. Like, we've moved in our galaxy, in our solar system, 7.6 trillion miles. I did that math, but like, if you extrapolate that sideways, that distance, and I don't see how you can believe that Polaris is still lined up right there. You would have to believe that it's moving at the same motion, the same speed, and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's called celestial locking.
Yeah, sure.
Even handing them that one for argument's sake. So hand them that for argument's sake and say, okay, no matter how far we move, it's always going to stay in the same spot. If you nudge the angle of the axis even a tenth of a degree, it's going to throw Polaris out of that central position. And again, since Hipparchus and Ptolemy did their work on precession when they discovered it, and I think it was like 300 BC, we should have seen, I think it's like 25 degrees of precession since then, and yet Polaris is still locked in the central position just like it was back then. So, again, that right there is an absolute impasse. It's an absolute heliocentric model killer. And I have yet to see any sort of logical, coherent, cogent answer from from Team Glober on this specific point, just like all the other points. But it is a really excellent proof, I think. And I wouldn't say that it proves flat Earth, but what it does do is it completely debunks the ball Earth model.
Can we get a hello to our new guest, DMT?
Hey.
Hey,
how you doing?
DMT, what's up, man?
As we have just started the live show, does anyone object if we just rattle our way through housekeeping? No objections? Excellent. Any signs of curvature? Anybody on the panel? Quite a big panel.
Nope.
Yeah, I saw a hill. Nope.
No signs of curvature. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Nope.
Oh, sir.
Any evidence of axial rotation? Ah, we've had that already. Any evidence that you can have a gas pressure without a container?
Nope.
Not that I know of. Definitely none of that.
What about scientific evidence of gravity?
Scientific evidence of what?
Gravity.
Somebody told me
Bunch of
about
complex
it.
hypotheses and no proof.
Well,
I think
any
word
evidence?
of mouth is proof for that.
Go on, Travis.
Nope.
Fair enough. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No, but how would you weigh that? I always wondered, how do you weigh magma?
How do I remember it? Nope. Moving on. What about the distance to the sun? Anybody else got any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nope. No idea.
Nope. Distance, no size, nothing. Just assumptions.
Fair enough. What about the R value? Any evidence of that?
Assumptions are fun, but not in front of Nathan.
Is it just me, or you're all really quiet? Is it just because it's housekeeping? Will you all pipe up and get noisier once we're done? Because we are.
Can you guys hear me?
Well, I already answered these once, so I didn't think I had to do it again. But just check me
you're
off for no on all of them.
Yeah, you're exempt.
No,
You answered them on
John,
your own.
just in case something pops up in the last hour or so.
Well, no, you guys weren't here on the last housekeeping session, so you just don't know who's going to come along and present Earth Curve. There's no trolls to present any nonsense. So.
Where's Jose when you need him? Because he said he had like thousands of pieces of evidence for the probe.
20 per one thing a flat earther gives.
But he will not show us one thing. I mean, that is pretty greedy of him to hoard the evidence to himself like that, because there is a world full of people looking for that.
Maybe he likes us. He doesn't want the conversation to end.
Yeah.
Keeping quiet so I can level you all up, just because it might just be my end, but it seems a bit quiet. But yeah, Jose is a big disappointment. I mean, I've got to be honest, I had no beef with Jose, but as of today, it's like, well, you've just become a baller troll, and deceit and lies are now your go-to, logical fallacy also. Just saddening, really, considering how long he spent on the show listening to these arguments. He thinks he can get around at being asked for the association with obstruction from the bottom up with Earth Curve, and he's like, my logic and reason. It's like, really? What,
well,
the
you know, anyone who I was going to say, anyone who's a flat earther, real quick, I just take a second. Anyone who's a flat earther and then joins the Globe Earth community, they really need to have lots of evidence to show. I mean, you would expect. And for them to keep for him to keep that so close to the chest, to me is, I don't know, it's a big red flag. I would just say.
John, you realize Jose is the one who got the P900 from Jaren, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, same guy.
Not that we should hold that against him.
I had no idea.
That's okay. You know, there's no love lost in that regard. Somebody donated it to Jose. An individual bought it off Jaren, actually paid for it, and then gave it to Jose. So, you know, so what?
I'll take one.
Yeah, I'd love one.
I'd love one
too. Just
too.
fun gossip.
Yeah, it just upsets me a little bit to know that he's just descended into lies. You know, asserting that he's seeing curvature. Well, he knows he's not seeing curvature, and he's even got his little spiel worked out for when we say, well, how do you get from obstruction to curve? He's got a little bit of word salad to go along with that.
Logic.
I have some questions about the moon and tides, because I've been trying to wrap my brain around how they think the tides work in the heliocentric model. Because like mainstream, where I do a regular Google search, they talk about just it's due to gravity. But if you look at Feynman, he talks about centrifugal force and things like that. But to me, it's like, if it's gravity, it's almost like they think that the oceans are a separate entity from the Earth. If the moon can pull the oceans, then it seems like things should be able to be pulled by the oceans too, like smaller objects on Earth. It's like, maybe I don't understand it, but then if it's centrifugal force, do we see anything else experiencing that? You know, like
no, objects of mass don't attract one another.
Well, and then you've got the other portion of that too, which is the whole tidal locking thing, because we only ever see one face of the moon at all times, and that's a pretty big coincidence in the Ball Earth theory, to where the moon takes exactly 27.69 days or whatever to orbit the Earth once, and it also takes precisely 27.69 days to spin once upon its axis. And so, of course, they came up with the whole theory of tidal locking, where somehow the oceans of the Earth have an effect gravitationally on what the surface of the moon is doing. So, yeah, it's crazy. But it's, in terms of the tides and how that is allegedly, the gravitational pull of the moon, yeah, it's just more apologetics. And you would think that there would be some correlation between the position of the moon and the tides, if that was the case, but not really so much.
If you look at a map, I think it was just a couple days ago on this live stream, somebody showed a map of the tides, and they are not uniform at all. There's like high tides, and they're not, like, they don't measure uniformly. It's like, how is the moon pulling on this little section more than another section? And it doesn't really make any sense.
It isn't. I'm going to answer these rhetorical questions from now on for any audience members that hear these rhetorical questions and go, yeah, how is it possible? Like they should be entertaining that question. It doesn't. It isn't. There is no gravity. It's all nonsense.
Yeah, indeed.
Nathan, you mean it's not possible for the moon's 1/6 gravity to overcome the tremendous gravity of the Earth?
Number one, there's no scientific evidence.
At the same time as the strong force?
There's no scientific evidence of this force that we never observe ever. So there's no objects of mass attracting one another. Like, I think, who was it that said it? HLSS said, we're not being massively pulled towards the oceans or a mountain or anything else with a huge amount of mass. That's not happening. So, yeah, objects of mass don't attract one another. Secondly, what do you mean the moon? It's a light. It's just this light up there. It's not some massive body. That's an assumption. We have no idea. We're not going there. The claim that they've been there is utter nonsense. It's just filmed in studios. We don't know what that light in the sky is. It's just a light. Certainly not pulling the tides, is my point.
Well, and what about the sun's gravity? Shouldn't we have some sort of a tidal reaction? Because if the measly little moon is causing the tides on the Earth, then what about the sun, really? I mean, we're allegedly orbiting the sun due to its massive gravity. Why wouldn't that affect the tides somehow? I mean, you would think that it would.
Well, gravity is said to be such a weak force. It doesn't make sense that it would actually make any effect on our oceans or anything when they're claiming such a small ratio.
Right, it's such a weak force, although it causes the supermassive Earth to orbit the sun at some 90 million miles away, as they say. It's such a weak force that it allows for all the trillions and trillions of gallons of water on the Earth to remain stuck to the sides of the spinning ball. And so, yeah, gravity doesn't seem all that weak when you really think about it, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Oh, and I just figured this out. So they say, okay, the sun is 400 times further away than the moon. And we're talking about tides and gravity and all that stuff. The mass of the sun is 27 million times greater than the moon. So
Right.
if the gravity has anything to do with these tides, it would seem that like the sun would even have a greater effect, like massively. We would have
Exactly.
tsunamis and all this stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, you would expect.
So, like, how would anything be able to orbit? How would any moon be able to orbit any of the planets if the sun has this ridiculous level of gravity? I mean, how can Earth's gravity be strong enough to hold on to the moon, but at the same time we're orbiting the sun? How does that make sense?
Yeah, there's so many inconsistencies in orbital mechanics.
So
They
many.
say it's a factual science.
Yeah. Just
The speed changes, I can hear formerly YouTube, ringing in my ears about the speed changes. So they expect us to believe that this body that we assume is a physical object rather than a light in the sky has enough gravitational energy to pull the tides, and yet we don't feel any speed changes as we're on this waltzer going through the solar system. It's like, if we're expected to believe that one can pull the tides, then surely we would feel those speed changes, but yet no, we don't.
Yeah, good point. Hey, listen, guys, I've got an appointment I've got to attend to for 10 a.m. my time, so I'm gonna bounce. But it was awesome hanging out with you guys, and keep sending me invites. I will be glad to pop in again whenever you guys do another ones at some point.
Thanks for
Cool
joining
to
us,
have you
John.
here, John, man. Thanks for stopping by, brother.
Be sure to
Yeah,
subscribe
awesome.
to the Morgile.
Take care, John.
Okay, guys, it was good seeing you, Nathan, and everybody, and I will see you again soon, I'm sure.
Bye for now.
See ya.
All right, love you guys. Bye.
Wasn't that a nice treat? Got the Morgile on to Flat Earth Debate. Excellent stuff.
I'm a new guest.
Say again?
I said I'm a new guest.
You're a new guest?
Yeah.
Excellent.
DMT
Tell
Matrix.
us about yourself. I've forgotten your name already. My bad. DMT.
My name is Peter. Yeah, I work at a hotel. About it. I read really fast. The one thing I got going for me.
What side of this fence do you sit in terms of this argument then?
There is no fence. They have no argument on the globe side. I mean, it's literally just conjecture and weird conclusions from observations, and observations don't lead to proof of anything. You can't just make observations and claim things because of the observation. All you did was prove that you can make the observation, but that doesn't actually tell you anything about the phenomenon that's going on.
Well, yeah, because you can interpret
It's
many
laughable,
different ways.
really. Just their arguments are just so poor and pathetic. I couldn't believe it.
Well, this is something that I thought about this morning is when you make a bunch of observations, at some point you need to use common sense and logic and put it all together. You can't, base it on your belief or what you want to believe. You need to, at the end of the day, be like, okay, is this superilluminan refraction or is the Earth flat? And I'm just seeing really far.
Yeah.
I agree. And all that superlumin refraction nonsense. I mean, yeah, sure, it can explain some of the the ridiculous atmospheric craziness that we see, but it doesn't mean it's curvature at all. So where they get that from is just belief, which has been perfectly displayed by the Globers.
I've got to be honest, I didn't actually hear the opening bits of that. It was very noisy here. Which side of the fence do you sit?
I was arguing that there is no fence because there's no argument for the globe side.
You're on the flat side. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a bit of a
Well,
conversation killer.
we always chat in the chat, so it's good to have you on here, DMT.
Thanks.
Okie dokie.
It'd be nice if I was a Glober. We'd have some stuff to argue about. But I don't want to argue with you, Nathan. Like watching some of these people just embarrass themselves is a lot of entertainment for when you're just watching. But I don't want to be on the opposite side.
We haven't heard anything from Arwin yet, have we? You there, Arwin?
Yeah, he spoke a little bit before. Might be getting breakfast or something.
Well, isn't this going well? Chatty bunch, all keen to discuss the excitement that is Flat Earth, I see.
just waiting around for some globe proof. That would be nice. Not obstruction from the bottom up. Some actual proof. Maybe there's a vacuum next to a pressurized system. That'd be nice.
I have a question about how globe earthers see planes taking off, because in their model, the atmosphere moves with the Earth sometimes, and it doesn't move with the Earth when it's convenient. But when they say it moves with the Earth because of planes, then how do you not have to have one side slow down as it's going, counter to the curve or counter to the motion, and then the other side, it's just going to take off, and it's already going 1,000 miles an hour, and it's going to be 1,500 miles an hour, which is the argument I was hearing from Nathan. But as far as the opposite way, shouldn't you have to start the plane with brakes or something?
Yeah, absolutely. You should have, but do not have, differing journey times east to west and west to east. You should have, but don't have. If you did have, that would confirm the Coriolis effect they claim is existing because the Earth turns underneath the second reference frame of the atmosphere, as demonstrated in things like the Foucault pendulum or Neil deGrasse Tyson with his example of a football field goal being made, or whatever else, snipers claiming that they have to adjust for the Earth turning underneath the bullet as it leaves the gun. All of these things would suggest we have a Coriolis effect, i.e. the Earth rotating underneath, and yet planes don't seem to suffer this effect. So why don't they? Well, because we're not turning.
Yeah, but how do they get to any conclusion on that specific issue without admitting that there cannot be movement? And also, if you, for example, let's say you're in the back of a tractor trailer, and let's say the truck is moving 50 miles an hour down the road, and you roll a ball towards the front of the trailer, and then you roll a ball towards the back of the trailer. They behave differently. So how is that not just absolute proof of standing still? I don't understand how Glovers are even lasting this long when it's so simple to prove no motion.
It's just a religious belief, because they were told it from birth, like all of us.
It's just sad, man. I watch them, and it's pathetic. And being somebody who's always tried to be logical, but still had the belief of the globe Earth without ever considering it, it was actually super, super, super simple for me to switch over to the fence and then to the flat Earth side, just because there is no argument. They literally don't have anything except criticizing your pictures and whatever else they do. I don't even keep up with it.
I mean, if you look at any of this stuff with any type of intellectual honesty, there's no way that you can really, with the lack of evidence of the globe, there's no way that you can convince yourself of it unless you just truly want to believe it. That's it. I didn't want to believe in flat Earth. I wanted to do other things. Other things to do. But unfortunately, the search for globe evidence has led me to nothing.
The guy in the chat said gravity is just a feeling, but that's not true either, because they even tell you can't detect it. And when they start telling you can't detect stuff, that's when they start inventing dark stuff that they keep tweaking, and it's so nonsense. I don't understand how it's continually going, but at the same time, I believed it too. So that's why I'm trying to support these channels that are actually trying to put logic and reason into the argument, because other than you guys, it's literally just them circle jerking each other and confirming their own nonsense.
Well, and didn't they say they discovered gravitational waves? It was I don't know how far away, though. It's if you can discover it that far away, how can you discover it under our feet?
Yeah, and then I listened to your Mick West debate yesterday, Nathan, and he said, or no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of a different argument. I was thinking about the debate that happened maybe 2 days ago with Fight the Flat Earth and somebody else that was debating him, and he had said that he had taken in the Navy, he had noticed gravity because he had put some things under a scale, and it affected the scale by 1/1000th of a gram or something like this. And I was just thinking, like, if it's that easy for him to write a paper absolutely proving gravity finally for the world, why is he like on a YouTube channel just spouting nonsense when he could actually be the forefront of like discovery? And he claimed that he had so many proofs of gravity in his real life and that he had so many examples. And then the ones he gives, he could easily, if they were true, he could easily write papers on them, uh, and just revolutionize the world of science. But he doesn't because he's so full of shit. And the
I
people
think
on the Globe side are so full of shit. It's ridiculous. Oh, I'm sorry, no cursing.
oh, I think he
Full
just.
nonsense.
I think it might be Jose who just wrote that there is no argument. Flat earthers are denying reality. I don't know. I could have been wrong. Could have been someone
Okay,
else.
so have
in
him
chat.
explain to me how planes take off and why in the back of a trailer that's moving do objects act differently against motion.
Guarantee you, he has no explanation for that.
I know he does it. I know he does it because I've heard him.
The thing for me is like I have a degree in psychology, and so I'm all into perception and like how we like formulate opinions about things. And for me, I believed this my whole life in the globe, and to me, it seems like new observation and new technology is demystifying things so that we're beginning to see reality as it is. And so I feel like it's the opposite, that globe belief and the whole heliocentric model that is denying reality. And as new observations are made, new technology reveals more, and that it's coming into the hands of regular people, not just NASA. We're seeing things as they are, and admitting that it doesn't jive with the reality we've been told.
Well, I've noticed that YouTube is not reality too, because when I go up to people in person and I have the ability to interact with them and they don't have an agenda to push, not a single one of them is bringing up nonsense or trying to argue the points. They all end up leaving. And I work at a hotel, so I see a lot of new random people. And there's quite a bit of them I'll talk to about flat Earth with. And if I present it, and I'll try different ways of presenting it to see how the reaction is, but if I present it and they don't have any arguments, they're very willing to have that speculative um, outlook to where they're not just going to start defending their belief for no reason. So when I hear these people online, and it screams of like of a dishonesty that's not just rooted in what they actually believe. It's like they have a fear of something, like they fear they're going to lose viewers, or they're being funded in some way, or advertising. I'm not sure what it is, but it just doesn't seem nearly the same as when I talk to people in person.
Like some funny Fight the Flat Earth quotes.
Do I have some?
No, I've got some. So I don't actually
okay.
watch Fight the Flat Earth, but Quantum Eraser does, clearly, because he sent me some quotes. So the video is called Flat Earth Debate, Fight the Flat Earth versus Spurs Chemo Mirror. And he's even given me some timestamps. So you'll have to excuse John's colourful language, but I'll just repeat what he's written pretty much as he's written it. So Craig, Fight the Flat Earth fuckwit. Quote, "A hypothesis is an explanation," end quote, timestamp 24 minutes 38. And then the next quote, Craig, Fight the Flat Earth fuckwit. "A hypothesis isn't an explanation," timestamp 24 minutes and 54. I'll continue. Craig, Fight the Flat Earth fuckwit. Quote, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. We do not use the word proof. there because one major thing is about science, and I would really like people to quote me on this. Science doesn't prove things. End quote. Timestamp 36 minutes. And then John puts really with a belly laughing face. And then he has a quote from geosociety.org, geoteachers nature of science.pdf. And it says, experiment. Once the hypothesis has been established, it is time to test it. The process of experimentation is what sets science apart from other disciplines, and it leads to discoveries every day. An experiment is designed to prove or disprove the hypothesis. If your prediction is correct, you will not be able to reject the hypothesis. And then it quotes the the actual place that it's come from.
Does he believe his own bullshit?
There you go. So that's, to use John's terminology, Craig, aka Fight the Flat Earth Fuckwit.
So he believes all that? Because if I was to start applying that, then he'd believe in unicorn farts, like for real. He even said yesterday.
He's one of these guys that think they have it wrapped up because he knows equations and stuff, and got no actual proof of anything.
Well, the funniest part was when he actually said that he would research unicorns and their farts. At some point in the debate, he was like, "Yes, I think it's intellectually honest to go out looking for unicorns," or something like this. And it's just hilarious. It's so sad.
Yeah, the problem is that they think they have science when actually they have logical fallacy. So in the case of the weight example, which Wolfie has also used, it's a form of logical fallacy, which I'll attempt to formulate for them, which is to say, if the spherical spinning Earth is real, then we'll experience weight change as we move from the equator. We experience weight change because when we move from the equator, therefore the Earth is a spherical spinning ball. So it's if P, then Q, Q, therefore P. The fallacy being that one doesn't necessarily follow the other. I've gone through this many times, I'll go through it again. So if I eat 10 hamburgers, I am full. Yeah. If P, I eat 10 hamburgers, then Q, I am full. Q, I am full, therefore I ate 10 hamburgers. Even though I'm absolutely drunk and I've only drunk beer all night. And that's why I'm full. In other words, the one doesn't necessarily follow the other. So, added to that, in the case of Globhead examples, you also have the begging the question element, which is to say that, in my example, if P then Q is actually a statement of fact, it's true, it's real, if I eat 10 hamburgers, I am indeed full. Whereas in a Globhead example of if the Earth is a spinning ball, they are assuming their outcome and affirming the consequent. So it's an affirming the consequent, begging the question, formal logical fallacy, just to give it its full official title. So Craig, if you're out there listening, you don't have science, you have logical fallacy. Your weight example does nothing but beg the question and affirm the consequent. That is all.
I noticed that fallacy breaks down with just the one word, therefore. Only that one word that makes it a fallacy, because it makes it so that has to be the outcome. But as soon as you take that word therefore out of it, it's no longer a fallacy. But then you're still begging the question. So then, yeah.
That's a good point, because that's a normal pattern for them. They don't want to actually address what any other possibility is. They start with the presupposition. And of course they need to, because it's a religious faith, like Nathan says, and it's, I don't know, man. How do you fight religious people is the question, because we're not actually fighting with intellect.
It's exactly the point, because let's say you do some type of observation. All right, so how do you get from that observation to its curvature? What's the only way to get to that?
Well, you skip the middle part, that's how.
Well, yeah, you either assume or you use a calculator that assumes R for you. So either way, you're assuming.
But you can formulate things like that weight, the weight difference example into anything, and just to make it seem more ridiculous, that's the way you do it. So you say, if the Earth is a giant dick with balls that create the southern and northern hemisphere ball sphere, then we will experience weight change as we traverse from one ball to the other. Therefore, the Earth is a giant dick.
Yeah, that's the new.
If you look at Soundly's pictures, it might be.
And since they beg the question and always, they'll start with the presupposition it's a dick, and they'll just confirm it with their own claims. And like Mick West, they'll just put it into a calculator and try to deceive you, and it'll prove you're on a dick.
It's all a bunch of presupposition-based assumptions.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to have to stop saying if P and start saying if R, then Q. Q, therefore R. And Q is basically insert bullshit here. If the Earth is a sphere, insert bullshit here. Bullshit has been inserted here, therefore the Earth is a sphere.
That's even better.
How was your show today, Arwin? Did tune in for a little bit of it?
Good. John popped in there, I think by accident.
Oh, he joined your show and went, oh, this isn't where I want to be.
No, he didn't. He was polite, like, oh yeah, hi. And his connection sucked. And then he went away and then he got onto your show. But...
yeah, he knows where it's at. Let's be honest. No, I'm only
Thanks.
joking. Tune in to the Early Bird Show. Goes out
Yeah.
1 p.m. UK time on ARWIJN channel.
Thank you. Yeah, I did get Peanuts Clark and Chris Berry on my panel right after that. So
Got Chris now, haven't we? Hey, Chris.
Say again?
Got Chris. Isn't that Chris? I recognise his icon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going on, Chris?
So, yeah, I had a fun conversation with some ballers yesterday on where I got those pictures from Jose. But
Yeah, it's pretty sad. It's sad to see
Yeah,
somebody go down that.
and it really was as easy as someone asking him to post them, and he just posted them. Like, he's just trying to fit in or whatever. But anyways, that's beside the point. I had to talk about mostly gravity. And I got a good concession about how Cavendish isn't an experiment, and it's not to detect gravity. It's to measure gravity, whatever that means.
Well, the first bit is what I would focus on. It's not scientific evidence. So what is it? Well, it's a circus sideshow then, right? It's not scientific evidence. It's not scientific evidence. It's not proving a cause. So you're measuring something that you've just decided exists, are you? Oh, right, that's handy. So it's not proving it's there, but you're going to measure it anyway.
Right. And then I had some,
Sorry, keep going.
I was just going to say, and there's some guy named Brumi. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. I haven't really, but I guess he hangs out on these Discord servers. That was basically saying, he was getting mad at me because he said all the things that we are looking at and that we're trying to figure out by using the scientific method and observation and test, that we're dumb because we should just know it all by common sense. So in other words, to him, it's common sense that the sun sets because the earth is spinning and that kind of thing. And I said, well, that's not true. That's the the exact opposite of what you should be doing. Because your senses, as much as we do like to say our senses can detect things, they can be wrong. And he asked me, well, how do you show that the sun can light underneath the clouds? He's like, that's impossible on a flat surface, right? It has to be round and blah blah blah. And he's like, it's just common sense. And I asked him, I said, well, have you done the test yourself? Have you tried an experiment or a test? Or have you tried to make an observation? And he said, no, why would he have to do that? I was mind, my mind was blown, to be honest. Some of the stupid things they were saying.
Do you know the answer to that? Do you know the answer to why he doesn't need to do the tests?
From him?
Well, I don't need it from him. I know the answer, but I just wondered if you did.
I just know what he told me. He just said it should be common sense.
Well, it's not common sense, though, so it must be something else. He just trusts the priests and what they've told him. He doesn't need to do the tests. He can just repeat what the priests told him about Cavendish or any other experiment that's claimed to be an experiment, right? Then it's common sense, once you've been told. And it's not common sense either. It's common knowledge, in quotes.
Right. And then, of course, I bring up Rob Skiba's test he did that, exactly duplicates the effect of a lighted source on a flat surface underneath a cloud-like object, shrunk down on obviously a testable scale. And then the only thing they can say to that is, oh, it's Rob Skiba. I'm like, well, yeah, but I go, he came up with he did some research. He found out info about the atmosphere. He did a test based on that information and research, and it exactly mimics what we see in real life. So I'm like, that's perfectly fine for me.
Well, what's funny is that we have to. They completely disregard all Rob Skiba's experiments and stuff, right? But we have to accept every little college guy who did the Cavendish in his dorm room or something. Like, we have to accept that as proof of gravity.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and when I tell them I did Cavendish twice and it didn't work either time, the only response I get is, well, I just didn't do it right. My setup was bad. I made some sort of mistake. And I tell them, well, basically the biggest thing I learned from Cavendish is how hard it is to set up and how many things you introduce, right? How many variables you introduce, wind and air currents and potentially static and all these things that will make that little bitty twisty bar move so easily but it's just because I did it wrong.
What's with the silence?
Just out of curiosity, how many times did you try that? Try to Cavendish?
I did it twice. I did it once with some sort of, well, I just call it inferior materials just to get it going because I didn't have the stuff I needed. And then I went and bought some better materials when I got, of course I got a lot of feedback. And I did it with better materials the second time and basically got the same result, which was either no movement or just sort of some movement that was just due to what I'd call interference due to air currents, movement, all that kind of thing. There was no attract, so to speak, as far as I could tell. Yet we're supposed to believe that Cavendish weighed the Earth and measured gravity with this in his barn in a box. Device was in a box with 2 holes in a barn, and he was looking through a telescope. That is some insane stuff to believe right there.
I wonder how level his barn was.
I've kept hearing that they've updated the Cavendish experiment, but every time they say that, it's always generalized. Yeah, we've updated, we've made sure everything's taken care of, but they can't actually give you one specific on that, and it seems like they're just grasping at straws at that point.
And then, so I just pull up to work. I have to go, but then they're saying, well, there's those, there's other ways to quote unquote detect gravity. One was the gravimeter. When I said, well, no, that's just detecting acceleration. And then another was, which I haven't looked at, something about.
Hello, Billy was there.
Hey, Warren.
Oh yeah, good to be back.
Anyway, I have to go. I just pull up to work, so I'll see y'all later.
All right, have a good one, man.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Nathan, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay, so what would you say fall earthers struggle more with, the lack of curve or the lack of movement?
I didn't hear the two that you asked about.
Lack of curve or lack of movement?
Both
That's
equally.
easy.
Doesn't matter
Equally?
which you pick of those two subjects, it will trigger them equally into asserting their religious belief.
But lack of curve is more in your face, literally. It's
I
much
would say
harder
the
to
opposite.
It's much harder to bypass because Earth rotation. It's more complex to think about, so it's much easier to overlook. While if we really push them on the curvature, that's just like you can't overcome that really. So
No,
in
but
my
they do,
opinion,
Arwen.
curvature
See,
counts more.
they do, Arwen, because they keep pushing back the goalposts. They'll say, "Oh, you weren't far enough, you weren't high enough, you didn't get your measurement right." But when you start giving them a proof of motion, and then they look at that proof, I have not had a single person, even with just the analogy of the truck and how you can detect movement in an enclosed system. How can they? How can they come back from that? You can't push a goalpost, and I've actually found it's a lot easier because when conceptually you're considering, a long distance and a curve, they're just going to claim that the Earth is so big. But then when you say, "Do you feel like you're moving?" and they admit to you no, and then you tell them experiments about how to detect movement, and then they can't find any movement. It just seems like at that point you can't keep being intellectually dishonest with yourself. When I first started considering the flat Earth, I wasn't really heavily indoctrinated into the globe Earth because I was adopted at a late age. I was like 6 years old, and I I ended up skipping a lot of the nonsense so that I could just catch up in English and everything else. And it was very easy for me to just be like, wait a minute, what is my evidence of me moving? I know things move. I know I see things move, but every time I see like anything move in the distance, I don't assume that I'm moving and it's staying still. So when I look at the stars or celestial bodies, I don't claim that I'm moving because I see them move. I always assume that they're moving, and then when you just have somebody start the conversation with the fact that they absolutely cannot feel that they are moving, it's hard to get around that.
You think so? They taught me that with the whole but look, you're in a car and it's driving at a constant speed.
Right, but that's when you can
If
start
you
doing
wouldn't know
acceleration
that
tests
you
and you
were
can
moving,
test the movement. You can
then
actually
would you
figure out
notice?
that you're moving. Even in
But that's
enclosed car
but
world.
that's linear movement in one direction. That's not a centrifugal motion. That's the funny thing about it. See?
No, but it's both. You can't just have centrifugal motion without actually moving.
Yeah, but there's more involved in centrifugal motion
Okay, just
than
because
in
you
a
add
straight
another
line
variable
motion.
doesn't
That's the
mean
whole
you
thing.
can just wait
You can
away the other one.
completely negate the senses of motion if you travel at a constant speed in a straight line, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you
here's
can. Okay, the feeling, but you cannot. You can test that you are moving, even if it's a steady movement. You can figure out in what direction you're moving, how fast, and if you're accelerating or not. So claiming that we on Earth cannot reproduce an experiment to test the movement of the Earth makes no sense whatsoever because we can do it in an enclosed system.
And the other thing is, they talk about how you can't tell that you're moving because you're moving at a constant speed. People, let's say you lived somewhere your whole life and you never really traveled anywhere, and then you go, several hundred miles north, you're going to be moving at a different speed. You can't tell me that you wouldn't notice that,
Exactly.
That's the whole issue. It all works until you bring in centrifugal motion. which is the supposed type of motion the globe Earth goes through. So yeah, that's the ironic thing about it. Again, they skip a part.
Can you,
the part
Arwen,
in
can you
between.
define centrifugal motion for me?
When you make a turn in a car, you feel yourself move outward or to the right or left of that would be kind of that centrifugal force that Erwin is talking about. So if you're making
I know what it
left
is.
turn, you would feel yourself moving to the right.
I'm just trying to get him to admit that you can't have centrifugal motion without actually moving in a direction.
Well, but I was actually thinking when I was listening to you describe it, if you lock yourself in an airplane, there's no turbulence, there's no windows, they don't bank, they don't rise, they don't descend, they don't do anything. You can stand in the middle of the airplane and not feel that you're moving. That's the movers are making. But we're saying
that's not actually true. If you start accelerating towards the back of the plane, you're going to feel a lot different than if you start running towards the front of the plane.
Good point. Yeah.
I've never done that. I mean, I've been in the plane. Well, I guess that's might be true.
Yeah, I've experienced that on a bus.
It might be true.
No, it's definitely true.
I was just on a plane the other day, and I did the exact same thing. I went to the lab, which is in the back. Completely easier to go towards the back than the front.
So, if you are watching this on either the Nathan Oakley or Nathan Oakley 1980 audience, then stay tuned as the after show will follow shortly after this. If you're joining us live, then unfortunately this is where our time is done, and I say a massive, huge, enormous thank you for joining us live and hopefully sharing this debate. Also a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this live debate possible. If you'd like to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate community, go to nathanoakley.com and join the forum. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!